Hey, geek protagonist. Kind of had a quick little setup here. I don't have any of my microphone and stuff, so I have to project my voice. If you can't see it, Photon. Now this is Photon from the Marvels and WandaVision. Actually, looks really good. I just like Photon as a character, Monica Rambeau. Anyway, but this is the closest thing I can get to her on there, and I don't mind the actress that plays her and stuff. I actually think she did a very good job overall. I don't remember. I think I reviewed the Marvels. I probably did. Who knows? I'm trying to keep up with the channel, but it's not always easy right now. Life is busy, you know how it is. So, I watched this from before Eyes of Wakanda, and I watched Marvel Zombies. So this one's going to be Marvel Zombies. The other one's going to be about Eyes of Wakanda. Now, with Marvel Zombies, I'm going to do some light spoilers because I want to talk about it. But what I'll do is that I'll do what I used to do. I'll put it in a way where I'll say, okay, here's where I get the spoilers. So I'll just kind of go over the overview real quick, give you that thing so you can kind of get in, get out, you know. All right, so firstly, just to let you know, this is not totally spoilers. This is a continuation of the What If episode, What If Marvel Zombies. You don't have to watch it in order to watch this. I do know originally this was supposed to be a movie, but because of the rights situation, especially dealing with Spider-Man, I know Spider-Man has certain rules. Like I think he's not allowed to be a zombie either, or something like that. But either way, one of the rules is that Sony didn't work with them on it, so they can't make it into a movie. That's why this is literally has an opening credit. The credits are very simplistic. They have the Marvel animation thing, but it looks zombified, but it didn't have all the cool music and stuff behind it, which I thought was actually really good because it kind of did set a feeling of despair. With that, it also had a situation too where when you did see the Marvel Zombies logo, I actually felt like it was pretty cool. It was like a black and white, very simplistic, but it did have the zombie sounds and stuff. So I thought it was actually really good. But it's literally like Marvel Zombies Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, like that. Because I think it was originally supposed to be a movie, but they just chopped it up. So this one has a lot of the new characters from phase... after Endgame. So was that phase 5? Yeah, pretty much phase 5. A little bit 4 and 5. So... give you a heads up now, you're not going to see any X-Men, you're not going to see any Fantastic Four because that happened way later. The timing on this is actually around right a little bit before Shang-Chi, technically. I don't think that's a spoiler thing either. That's just to help you kind of get an idea of where the time frame is. If you did see the What If episode, you realize this was right around Endgame when that in Infinity War when that happened. Just from the time frame scale from the What If episode, spoiler alert, but I think by this point you should have an idea just from what you've seen of it. I don't feel like that's a really major spoiler or really a spoiler. The characters that they focus on, you see some of the new characters like Kamala, as Ms. Marvel, Riri, stuff like that, Kate Bishop, and things like that for what they've introduced since. And this felt like they were trying to push some of their newer tier characters, the new people that's supposed to kind of take over and move forward. As such, I will say this, as a zombie story goes, it wasn't terrible like that. It was a decent zombie story. They did have some MacGuffins in there. They had some other things going on, and kind of a twist. The characters, I think, did a good job, very likable. I will say, like I said, if you didn't see the trailer, I mean, why are you here? Or at least watched it. Like I said, I'll get to the spoiler part. Blade Moon Knight was awesome. I liked that, the way they did the whole thing. I just thought that character was just cool. They had some characters, like I said, from Shang-Chi, from the different other ones that you've seen recently. So basically think of most characters after Endgame and Infinity War where they were at. They're kind of still there. So you get to see these characters. Each episode, they're kind of dealing with a situation. You get to see where the characters are, how they start to converge with each other, what they're each of them are doing. You get to see different aspects of the outbreak. I thought that was actually really cool. And I don't know if you remember, so this part is from the What If episode, how it got started. So, like I said, these episodes, so anything from the What If, I'm going to assume that you already watched. If you did not watch the What If episode, then you should just go watch that and stop this video now, because I'm going to reference that a couple times. Started with the Quantum Realm, where, like, for some reason, Janet was a zombie. And she bit Hank, and then they started the zombie plague when they came out the thing. So you actually get to see how the craziness of the vampires, everything from San Francisco, that was actually really cool. I think the characters did well overall. They still kind of had the hokey Marvel kind of thing, if you know what I'm saying. And beyond that, I thought the action was good. They did have it where they did have the thing of anybody could get it, pretty much. They did center it around specific characters for the most part, and it kind of felt like the Avengers game, in my opinion, in that aspect. If you understand what I'm saying before I get to the spoiler, it'll make sense to you if you played the Avengers game. I thought they introduced a few different kind of twists, and they were kind of setting up despair. So I thought that was interesting. Like the Zombie Queen and how they did that, that actually kind of made sense, and it worked to an interesting degree. They definitely did things like, I'm talking like you think of movies like Black Widow, like I said, Miss Marvel, even Ironheart, all that stuff, Shang-Chi, those kind of things. So those things took reference on it. For it, you get to see how this stuff kind of pans out. Some people with their desperation, how they lived. There were some cool little, Easter eggs and stuff like that. If you can't see it, because I can't tell them in frame, Marvel experience. Like I said. So now I'm going to get into some spoiler territory. I will say there are some things that are a little confusing, and I did see a lot of people jump to the internet. I even did myself just to see what people were saying. The ending and some of it did get a little confusing. There is some stuff in there where it's kind of like, why? Like, for story survey purposes, I understand. But for it to make sense, even among their own things, it's kind of like, eh. And I know at the time when they were writing this and they were putting this together, they didn't have certain things they knew about, other things were changing, so I get it, but still, there's definitely some things in there, and I'm like, well, why not just do this? And there was some, if you think about it, there were some obvious places that they could have just fixed everything, but I get why they were trying to do it, because they were trying to create despair, storyline, separation stuff, and you can do that from time to time, but sometimes if you know enough, you're kind of like, wait, but then why don't you just do this? It was literally one of those situations. It was like, well, why don't you just do that? And that's honestly how it was quite a few times. I had that. Like I said, I'll talk more about that in the spoiler territory. All in all, if you want to watch something that's an interesting, okay zombie thing, it's fine. It's not like bad to watch. These characters, I will say, if you haven't attached to them by now, you're probably not going to attach to them with this. It's interesting to see them in this situation, because if I can say when someone got taken out, only certain characters were kind of impactful, and the funny thing is that even when they were, it was because you already had an attachment to them from a little while ago. It's like, I think like certain characters were supposed to be more impactful if they got to that point, but because everything slowed down and they're trying to change everything, it's just not the same, if that makes sense. It doesn't hit as hard, but it's like, oh, okay, that hit good enough. So I would say I'll give it overall a good time. That would be my rating for this. Like I said, it wasn't like you have to watch this and it's over, but it wasn't bad. It was like interesting. Like, I sat through it and I was like, okay, and I was fine. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like something that blew my mind. It wasn't something like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. It was just a good time. Like, I was like, I can sit down and watch this, and you can sit down and watch it. And if you're just like, I'm just gonna watch this zombie story with the superheroes with powers, it works. It was cool to see how the zombies were, like, how they, it seemed like the ones that had like the intelligence, and they have some of their intelligence and how they worked and how they did things with their powers. And you could tell like if Wanda had those sires with the glowing eyes, like Wanda, how she kind of like fixed their brains enough to be, they were basically zombie versions of themselves. They knew enough that they could use their abilities and stuff. And then you had some zombies that were kind of more fast shamblery. They were a little bit more, some of them were just straight shamblers. But you did have ones that were a little bit more faster, and I think they were the ones that were like Wanda, so it was like levels to it, so I thought that was pretty cool. Even some of them, like I said, some of them just moved and did what they did. And what I mean by fast shambler is like Walking Dead season 1 and stuff. They shambled, but they could kind of run on you. They weren't like going like super sprinters like in Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead. I had a moment. That's like literally like my all-time favorite zombie movie. It's like my top 5, literally top 2, and I couldn't remember for a second. Anyway, Dawn of the Dead level. But they did have it when if they were like, you could tell like they had the red eyes. That was something. They still had their brains, but they were loyal to the queen, and it kind of worked. It kind of reminds you of Game of Thrones a little bit with the White Walkers and the war with that. So all in all, I give it a good time. Now, I'm getting to the more spoiler-heavy or heavier section, so you can jump off now. If you want to hear some of my other thoughts, stay on. All right. They focused on Miss Marvel. I love Iman Vellani. I actually think she's great as Miss Marvel. I would like to see more of her as Miss Marvel. They got to stop trying to make her a thing. And I'm not talking about Iman. I'm talking about Miss Marvel. Look, she had a time. It's like the Avengers game. It was like they focused on her. Stop doing that. It was like I loved her as a character. I didn't hate her in this. I thought she was fine. I actually thought she was cool. I thought when she met Spider-Man, it was great. Like it wasn't like I was sitting there going, "This was terrible" or something like that. It was just like I was like, again. I thought Kate Bishop was really good. What they did with that. Riri, it felt like they were pushing her too. So where I got confused, they had this thing where they were the mini thing that they were doing, the signal thing to try to take it to space. You find out it's like they did a twist and a twist and a twist. So you find out like once they get there, it's like the first episode, Kamala has to do it. She meets Blade Knight. Blade Knight's awesome in every aspect. They get to this point. They have some deaths. They meet up with all the Black Widow crew. That happens. Yelena, I think killing her off was probably the most impactful, but it was like, but they did do some references, like she did some Star Trek references, and I guess they called it the US O'Hara, because if they would have called it the Enterprise, they would have probably got sued. But they definitely pushed that she's a Star Trek fan with Kamala, and where they kind of found the thing, and they were like, all right, we're going to have to keep going. There was a cool fight between Captain Marvel and Icarus from Eternals. He was just going. I don't know why Icarus didn't talk. And the Storm thing was kind of interesting because they were just like fighting back and forth with power for power. But it was a little weird. But I did like they have Friday. And I thought they could have done a little more with those characters, actually. And maybe could have focused. Like, I felt like if this was a full and intended to be a series, they could have like dove in a little bit, like maybe 8 episodes. They could have followed them, because they did kind of jump to one group, and they jumped to Shang-Chi's group, and they had Jimmy Woo. They had the Skrulls going after the cows. That was pretty funny because that was a comic book reference to the Skrulls back in the day when they first appeared with the Fantastic Four. They had cows, and they were trying to save the cows that was their brethren and stuff like that. So I thought that was funny, and I thought it was cool to see Skrulls. There's more of that I would have liked to see with a Mad Max thing. It felt like they could have done more if they planned it out that way. It's not their fault either. I don't fully blame them, but I kind of wish that they did, because Spider-Man was barely in it, my personal opinion, and that kind of annoyed me. I know the episode was surrounded by him and the floating head of Scott. I thought the final fight reminded me of the final White Walker thing, so that was cool. But there's where things start to get a little confusing. So Wanda needs to get this army to go after Hulk. Hulk becomes this conduit because of all the energy and stuff. And you Chadwick, because he passed away, not do his lines. Spider-Man did the overview, but it was definitely Chadwick Boseman, probably last time we're going to see him as a character. He takes out Thanos to get all this energy and stuff. So Hulk embodies the energy. And from the previous part of this is when I said things were confusing or a little weird. This is where the inconsistencies come in. So Wanda keeps saying she needs Miss Marvel, but she never explains why. It's just Miss Marvel's important. Miss Marvel's important. I don't know if it's because of the bangle. I don't understand. They never go into it. But she needs Miss Marvel. Now, we seen in WandaVision that Wanda's powers, the thing that made her powers so dangerous was that it was slowly starting to take over reality, and it would have kept growing. That was the issue. If it would have stopped, it would eventually take it over the world. So now it's like, well, then why does she need the bangle? And then she needs Hulk stuff to fix everything. So she needs the Infinity stuff. Now, Hulk did some cool stuff as an Infinity thing. You see why? Because he's like an Infinity being. He has all the Infinity energy. He becomes a conduit. He becomes an anchor being. And he's like hitting everything. But then here comes the question with that. Why didn't Hulk just fix everything? He has all the energy and all the power of the Infinity Gauntlet. Just like in the movie where he's, and they do that stupid thing where he doesn't have a healing factor, which is completely and utterly dumb. Because that's just stupid. Because they just wanted to have She-Hulk have that power. But we're not going to get into that. Because that was stupid. I just want you to know that was stupid. He has like all this power, and he heals even though the Asgardian stuff cuts him. But you see him like do all this crazy cool stuff. He punches harder, he's hitting stuff, and that's what he's doing. And I'm like, okay, I expected him to do more just off the sheer fact of his power. And I'm like, okay, so I see why Wanda would see he's dangerous because he has the power of the Infinity Stones. But then she needs the Infinity Stones to alter reality and then to fix everything. But she also needs Kamala's bangle power, I guess. It was really weird. They never explained it. And it's like Wanda can control the alter reality. She got to the point where she was even able to alter reality to make herself look like herself. So I didn't understand. One of my favorite characters in this, honestly, was Death Dealer and Jimmy Woo. I just actually liked their relationship because Death Dealer was really cool. But Death Dealer was just cool about everything. And I just thought that was... I just liked the way Death Dealer was. He was just, take that out. And he would just stare and talk. But you could tell him and Jimmy had an interesting relationship. Because like when they had the bunk thing, he'd look at me, he didn't talk. He's like, okay, you want to stop bunk. I actually really liked that. So that one actually got me when they got taken out. Because I actually really liked that relationship. As weird as that is. I attached to that more than some of the other stuff. Beyond that, the whole Nova Corps was covering and quarantining Earth. That was interesting. Because the whole original thing was to get the space to get the Nova Corps to help, but they didn't talk to them either. And then when they had the Game Master ship, one of the steps things when they were running down steps, that reminded me of Lord of the Rings when they ran down the stairway. I think that was a reference. Blade Knight was just cool. Like his senses, everything about him, he was just really cool. Everything about Blade was cool in this. He was probably one of the best things in there. When he killed him off, that kind of sucked too. It was cool to see a zombie Thor versus Hulk, but it did raise a question where there was just some things that was like, go with it. And there were several times we were just like, just go with it, just go with it. That was like kind of, Like, here is one. So Riri is walking around. Riri basically, they have Friday with them, right? And I guess they're the champions now, or the Young Avengers, but now they're called, I think they're going to be called the champions. They're still going to go with that. But then I was like, well, why didn't Riri just take and put on Tony's armor? Now, she had this really cool gauntlet thing. I love that. The gauntlet setup and stuff. Where it had the energy thing, and that was like a simplistic thing. I actually thought that was great. But this was Tony's armor from Infinity War. It's a nanotech. It could have actually reset around her, and then she could have Friday. Now, Friday was kind of her own independent person. I think that's why they played that. Friday would fly around. She was kind of a drone setup, which was cool, because Friday could kind of back them up. She could take it when they needed to leave, because Friday could take on the hits. And Friday could recover. So I got that part, and I was okay with what they did. I just didn't understand why Riri didn't do that. Because she hacked other stuff. It was like, well, why didn't she just hack the system and then put the nano things? I mean, I'll be walking around in Tony's armor, especially if it's energy based with an arc reactor, which it was. I'll be in that armor all day. Like, I would have cleaned it out and just been in it, and then me and Friday would just be Ironheart right there. She did have the heart set up, so like I said, what they did, reading it, whoever wrote it, I'm not sitting there going, that was bad. I thought that was completely fine. It's just, I would have thought Riri and me personally would have been like, all right, let me put on armor, because zombies bite me, armor. But they did this thing and they introduced it where she gets bit and she does this thing and see if it works. And they kind of do the thing with Namor and Zemo supplies people to Namor so they can get free passes. But then I'm like, is this a constant thing? Or is this a one-off? Can you turn to Raft, the prison, into Underwater City? But I don't know if it was a full thing. And then Zemo kind of did this thing of, I hate heroes, so he kind of did, well, I always felt Zemo was intelligent, but he kind of did a thing where it was like, he cut his nose to spite his face kind of thing, and I just didn't feel like that was his normal character. But for this, it kind of worked as Desperate Times kind of thing. John Walker was interesting how they did him. He got bisected. That was hilarious. It seems like all the super soldiers get that way. As they were going through, they kept getting different groups. They had to contact the place with, and that one British chick that's like in everything right now, the black chick. But they kind of did this thing where they wanted to culminate. So Spider-Man and them are there, and Scott. They have this like little group, the Blades group, and all of them had to come and help. So they had like, this is all that's left, which I kind of felt there should have been more, but you know, it's here and there. I did find it weird that there wasn't more magic people, because that place was away from the zombie apocalypse. And when you did Avengers Endgame, there was a ton of magic users, so that was kind of weird. But they did have some that were there that did spells and sword spells, and that part was cool. The war was cool. Hulk being all powered up was cool, but it was just weird to see, why didn't Hulk fix things? He became a conduit. He was no longer Bruce, no longer Hulk. Okay, but he had the power literally to fix things. He had all the Infinity Gauntlet. He had the Mind Stone, the Reality Stone, the Power Stone, the Time Stone, the Space Stone. You know, the Aether, the whole thing. He had all of it. Like I said, the Reality Stone. So I didn't understand why he didn't just fix everything. When Wanda wanted to do it, I didn't understand why Wanda needed that. Because by this point, her power would have been unbridled. She could just start warping reality. So, and why did they need Kamala's bangle? Or Kamala? I can't tell. I think she needed the bangle. They never really explained it, but she needed Kamala, and she kept saying I needed her. And then at the end, when she was living her regular life in Jersey and had the Black Widow poster, but then Riri's trying to wake her up. I don't know if she's like in some kind of floating suspended thing. I don't know why. So I feel like they left it open, hoping that they can get a sequel series, but if not, they leave it on a cliffhanger, and it's like, oh, kind of thing. And it's there, and it's like, oh, okay. So it still was kind of a downer. But I know the person who wrote it, Zeb Wells, was a part of it. I think Zeb Wells is a pretty decent writer overall. I think he did a teleplay. Like, Zeb Wells was like, yeah, like, you know, if you want more, ask for more. I kind of want them to do the story and give it a final hit. You know what I mean? Like, let's give it an ending. Maybe make a sequel series, make it a series, and give it an ending. If you're not going to keep running it over and over. So like I said, that was all my thoughts on it. It was a good time. That's the extra. Geek Protagonist. You stay safe, you stay healthy, stay real. Tell me what you thought. I thought using the secondary characters were fine. I know they're trying to push them. I personally feel like hopefully after this Doomsday and all that stuff, they kind of reset it and get the original characters back, and then hopefully get these characters into a better place. I feel like these characters are kind of, they feel like B tier, and I'm hoping that they work a way to make them likable and workable fully. I don't hate these characters, Kate and stuff, but you don't use one character to replace another. Like, that's old. Let's do it where it all works. All right, so tell me what you think. Like I said, I had a good time. I don't think it was a bad watch. Just, yeah, it is what it is. See ya.